Alexander the Third of Macedon, better known as Alexander the Great, the conqueror of the known world. And today we'll answer the major question of, did he ball? Did Alexander the Great in fact ball? Let's get into this. How are you doing? I'm Jerome, aka Space Dorito Guy, aka Space Wendigo. I'm a lot of things. You've probably seen me on TikTok. I'm the guy who created pretty much the foundation of the Countries video series, where countries talk sauce to each other, or smack, or whatever you want to look at it with that view, because I can't swear within the first 30 seconds apparently here on this platform. So we're going to keep it nice and PG for the most part. So, if you're used to all that, you've probably seen me over the last few years. I've been doing it for a long while, and I think it's been a long time coming since I should come here to YouTube. Let me just fix my glasses there real quick. Hopefully no one clips that. Do not clip that. And in the process of editing this, I have already realized in this my first ever YouTube video that I have no idea what I am doing with my hands. Please help. I call this CrossFit. Like ninja CrossFit. Is this what I be doing with my hands, bruh? Should be doing this with my hands. What am I doing with my hands? Oh. Alright, now that the camera's picked up and we have addressed what was going on with my hands, today we're going to talk about Alexander the Great. Alexander the Third of Macedon. Alexander goes around and claps everyone's butt cheeks. I think we're past 30 seconds. Alexander goes around the world. I'm just not going to say it, but Alexander finds the diamond within the booty hole rough. Let's just go with that. Alexander the booty hole hunter. Alexander! He coming for your booty! Who is Alexander the Great? Who is Alexander of Macedonia? Who is the legendary boy boosie hunter of the ancient world of Greeks and Romans? Today's ad brought to you by nobody, because I'm not sponsored by anybody. One day. But that day is not today. No, today we're going to talk about Alexander the Great. And Alexander's history is incredible. Some say he is the greatest conqueror ever in human history. Some say the greatest general ever in human history. Some say the greatest connoisseur of boy boosie ever in human history. But only some people can say that. And most people is pretty much everybody. Alexander the Great is one of the most successful and influential conquerors in human history. He was the king of Macedonia, a small kingdom in northern Greece, and he inherited the throne from his father, Philip II, in 336 BC. Prior to that, he had them boys busting it down. When he was only 20 years old, he spent most of his reign leading a series of military campaigns that expanded his empire from Greece to Egypt and India. I do just want to state that it's never been actually confirmed whether or not Alexander the Great partook in homosexual relations, but for the sake of comedic, humorous standards that we do here, we're just going to joke about it. So please, take that shiza with a grain of salt. And in the process of expanding that far, the ground quaked from the fear of just fear and pure sphincter clenching. The further he moved, the further the sphincters of the people in front of him clenched. Through his military campaigns, expanding this empire created a vast and diverse realm that spanned 3 continents and many cultures. Alexander the Great unfortunately died in 323 BC at the age of 32, leaving behind a legacy that shaped the course of history for centuries. Alexander's achievements were remarkable for several reasons. First, he demonstrated exceptional military skill and strategies that could get pretty much any pantaloons off of any person in the world. He swung both ways. Alexander was a charismatic leader who inspired loyalty and devotion from his troops that were unwavering and pretty damn fucking impressive. They would have followed him to the ends of the world, and, well, they did. They did follow him to the end of the world. They followed him all the way to India. At the time, the end of the world, and also still to this day, the end of your bowels. Rest in peace to your bowel system if you go to India. He was not only a warrior but also a visionary who sought to spread Greek culture and civilization to the lands that he conquered, fostering a process of culture exchange and integration that is known as Hellenization. Hellenization, just like the fucking words that are going to be coming out of my mouth. As you can already hear, I'm going to be butchering shit left and fucking right. He founded many cities, most of them that he named after himself, and encouraged the development of science, art, literature, and philosophy. He also showed respect and tolerance for the religions and customs of the people that he encountered, and adopted some of the practices himself, such as wearing Persian clothes and marrying Persian princesses, and possibly slapping the cheeks of Persian booties. However, Alexander's achievements being incredible, he also had a lot of negative consequences. His empire was far too large at the time, and it couldn't be governed effectively, and soon collapsed after his death, leading to a period of instability and conflict amongst his successors, who divided the empire into smaller kingdoms. His wars also caused immense suffering and destruction for many people, especially those who had resisted his rule or rebelled against him. He was also criticized for his excessive ambition, pride, and cruelty, which led him to commit acts of violence and injustice, such as executing his former friends and allies. Because why the fuck not? We've all been crossed. Revenge. But during his campaigns of revenge, it also led to civilians being massacred. And he was also accused of becoming corrupted by power and luxury, and losing touch with his Greek roots and values, but how can you hate on a man that has a portrait of himself drawn up like this? Like, obviously, he didn't lose touch with his Greek roots. He just found immense more drip, and I lied to everybody. I created this, but still, look at how amazing this is. Alexander's childhood was full of adventure, learning, and challenges. He was born in 356 BC in Pella, the capital of Macedonia, a small kingdom in northern Greece. He was the son of King Philip and also the son of Queen Olympias. These two had a stormy and violent relationship. Alexander also had a half-sister, Cleopatra, and several half-brothers from his father's other wives. Alexander was raised by a nurse named Lanike, who was the sister of one of his future generals, Cletus the Black. Cletus! He also had a close friend. Where are you going? He also had a close friend and companion, Hephaestion, who would become his most loyal and trusted ally. Alexander showed signs of courage, intelligence, and ambition from an early age. He loved to hear stories of heroes and legends, especially those of his ancestors, like Achilles and the Trojan Wars. Shit that's totally made up. When he was 13 years old, he was sent to study under the famous philosopher Aristotle, who taught him a variety of subjects, such as logic, ethics, politics, science, medicine, and literature. Aristotle also inspired Alexander's interest in exploring and conquering new lands and cultures. And yes, that fucking Aristotle, the one you're thinking of, like the holy... there's a jet. Joe Biden moment! Aristotle also inspired Alexander's interest in exploring and conquering new lands and cultures. Alexander also learned to ride, fight, and hunt, and he proved his skills by taming a wild horse named Bucephalus. Whichever became his faithful steed for many years. Alexander's childhood was also marked by political turmoil and danger. His father, Philip, was a powerful and ambitious king who expanded his kingdom through diplomacy and war, and he also had many enemies. Many weren't enemies that you really wanted. Some of them stabbed you. Bo got stabbed. Bo got fucking shanked. Just fucking And that is how Alexander became king. His dad got shanked. Alexander's first military campaign as king was in 335 BC, when he campaigned in the Balkans and reasserted control over Thrace and parts of Illyria before marching on the city of Thebes, which was subsequently destroyed in battle. He did this to secure his northern borders and to quell any rebellions among the Greek city-states that were under his father's hegemony. He also wanted to demonstrate his authority and power as the new king of Macedonia. As the leader of the Hellenic League, a coalition of Greek states that was formed as basically a purpose to invade Persia, he succeeded in pacifying the Balkans and intimidating the Greeks around him. And he prepared to launch an invasion of Persia in 334 BC. His next challenge was at the Battle of Issus in 333 BC, where he faced the Persian king, Darius III. For the first time, despite being outnumbered, Alexander used his superior tactics and courage to rout the Persian army and force Darius to flee. Leaving behind his family, treasure, and army, Alexander then captured the important cities of Damascus and Sidon, and laid siege to the heavily fortified city of Tyre, which resisted his attack for 7 months. He finally took the city by building a causeway across the sea and storming the walls with his siege engines and naval forces. He then entered Egypt, where he was welcomed as a liberator and a pharaoh. He founded the city of Alexandria, which was just one of an absolute fucking metric ton of cities that he named after himself, because fuck you, when you go around the world and conquer shit and kick everyone's teeth in, who's gonna tell you what you can and can't name a city? He also visited the Oracle of Ammon at the Siwa Oasis, where he was allegedly proclaimed as the son of Zeus, the king of gods. Ballin'. His greatest achievement was at the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC. If you guys haven't figured out, shit goes backwards at this point, right? We're not going forward. We're going backward. This is before Jebus. We are before Jebus. BC is before Jebus. AD is after Jebus. Let us continue. His greatest achievement was at the Battle of Gaugamela, though, in 331 BC, where he faced Darius for the second time. Darius had assembled a huge army of over 200,000 men, including war elephants, chariots, and cavalry, and had chosen a flat and open place to fight. The exact opposite of Anakin versus Obi-Wan. Motherfucker was not going to give anybody the high ground. Alexander, however, said fuck all that nonsensical bullshit, and was not intimidated by the numbers, let alone the terrain. And he used his smaller but more disciplined and agile army to exploit the gaps and weaknesses in the Persian formation. He then charged directly at Darius, who once again fled the battlefield, like a little bitch. You're probably wondering to yourself what happened. Well, I got tired, and I went to bed. That is what happened. Let us continue. Alexander the Great then pursued Darius across the mountains and deserts of Iran. But unfortunately for Alexander, and mainly unfortunate for Darius, Darius was shanked by one of his own generals. It's very common back in the days to just get stabbed. They had a stabbing problem. Alexander the Great then occupied the Persian capitals of Susa, Persepolis, and Ecbatana. I shouldn't have any trouble with Ecbatana. That one's simple. And he then claimed himself as the King of Kings. Triple H was extremely pissed off by this, but at that time, Triple H was bouncing around in the nutsack of his 1020th time grandfather. So he didn't get much of a say. Now I know exactly what you're thinking to yourself. Hey, Jerome, who were Alexander the Great's generals? Well, guess what? We're going to talk about them. Ptolemy Soter was a Macedonian Greek general and successor of Alexander the Great, who went on to found the Ptolemaic kingdom, centered on Egypt and led by the Ptolemaic dynasty from 305 BC to 30 BC. He was born in 367 BC and was one of Alexander's most trusted companions and military officers. He played a principal part in the later campaigns in Afghanistan and India. After the death of Alexander in 323 BC, Ptolemy retrieved his body and brought it to Egypt, where he established himself as the ruler of the country. He fought against the other successors of Alexander for control of the empire, and he gained territories such as Judea, Cyprus, and Cyrenaica. He also promoted the development of culture, science, and literature in Egypt, and he founded the famous Library of Alexandria. He married several women, including Thais, Artacama, Eurydice, and Bernice. And he had many children, some of whom became rulers of Egypt or other kingdoms. He died in 282 BC and was succeeded by his son Ptolemy II. He was also the author of History of Alexander's Campaigns, which is now lost. He was regarded as a pharaoh by the Egyptians and a savior by the Greeks. Seleucus Nicator was a Macedonian Greek general, officer, and successor of Alexander the Great, who went on to found the eponymous Seleucid Empire, led by the Seleucid dynasty. He ruled over a vast territory that spanned from Asia Minor to India, and he was one of the most powerful and influential rulers of all of the Hellenistic world. He was also a patron of culture, science, and literature, and he founded many cities such as Seleucia and Antioch. Antigonus Monophathalmus was a Macedonian Greek general and successor of Alexander the Great. He was one of the most powerful and influential rulers of the Hellenistic world, and he founded the Antigonid dynasty, which ruled over Macedonia and Greece until the Romans' conquest in 168 BC. Some facts about Antigonus. He was born in 382 BC and was the son of a nobleman named Philip. He served under Alexander the Great as a commander of the allied Greek infantry and a satrap of Phrygia. After Alexander's death, he received Pamphylia and Lycia in addition to Phrygia, but he had to flee from the Perdiccas. The Perdiccas. Sounds like a group of Mike Ditkas just coming after you. Could you imagine that? Just a group of Mike Ditkas coming after you. Sausages in hand, beers in the other, cigars lit. He formed an alliance with Antipater, Ptolemy, Lysimachus, and Craterus against the Perdiccas. I can't pronounce any of these fucking words, so I don't give a fuck anymore. If I'm saying them wrong, if I continuously say them wrong, I don't care. I am moving past this. We're going on to greener pastures. We're going to find the land of milk and honey, which is normal fucking words. I can say Native American words very well, like Oconomowoc, Minnemanawaki, Kashina. I made up Minnemanawaki, but you get what I'm saying. I also said it wrong at first. He defeated Eumenes, the satrap of Cappadocia and an adherent of Perdiccas, with the help of Seleucus and Python. After Antigonus had defeated Eumenes in Greek fashion, he stabbed him. Yeah, he didn't stab him, he cut his head off, but stabby. There's a lot about Antigonus. I recommend looking it up yourself. I personally don't give a fuck. So for one of the last facts about the guy, he had one eye, and he lost it at the siege of Perinithos. Now we're going to talk about Cassander. This guy. Cassander was a Macedonian general and king who lived in the 4th century BC. He was one of the successors of Alexander the Great, who fought for control of his empire after his death. Cassander was the son of Antipater, who was Alexander's regent in Macedonia during his absence. Cassander was also the husband of Thessalonike, who was Alexander's half-sister and the father of several sons. Cassander was. Hopefully we don't get that fucking confused. Not his wife. His wife wasn't the father of the sons, but he was the father of the sons. Cassander was known for his ruthless ambition, as he had Alexander's son, who was his heir, Alexander IV, and his mother, Roxana, killed. Stabby! He then also destroyed the city of Thebes, which had rebelled against him. Which I think we've all been there in a few Total War games where you just get a little fed up of a couple rebellions that are happening and just light that shit on fire. Shit's on fire, yo. We're going to speed this up because I'm sick and tired of talking about his generals, which would later become the future leaders of his empire after he died. Mainly because, 1, I don't fucking care, and 2, this sun is starting to piss me off, and 3, I had just finished this video, and then I ran out of space, thus losing everything. So now we're gonna speed run this shit. After Alexander defeated Darius, he then had to defeat Bessus. But he had to chase Bessus down, and once he chased Bessus down, he balled up on his ass and hit a game-winning 3, thus sending Bessus to his dungeons. Which I'm just fucking joking with you. There was no basketball game. He kicked his ass after he caught him, and he cut his fucking head off. After defeating the Persian Empire, he then began a campaign against warlords and chieftains within Afghanistan. Alexander and his army then crossed into Pakistan and fought fierce resistance from the locals that had lived there. Once reaching the Indus River, his troops had decided that they had had enough and would go no further, thus forcing Alexander the Great and his army to turn back towards Greece. Alexander and his army then turned back, and he led his men through southern Iran, and then ended up losing a whole lot of fucking dudes because he led them through the Gedrosian desert. Who leads a fucking army through a desert? Alexander then arrived back in Babylon, but pretty much wasted no time. He began drawing up plans to invade towards the west, into the Mediterranean. Then he fucking died. We are gathered here today to mourn the death and passing of Alexander the Great, aka Alexander the Third of Macedon. Born July 356 BC, sadly dead June 323 BC. May he clap eternal butt cheeks. Amen. And now you're wondering to yourself, what happened after he died? His entire kingdom fell into turmoil, and everybody started punching the shit out of each other. I'm not going to go into it, maybe for another video, because I am being flashbanged by the fiery ball of plasma that exists above us, that we orbit. And, well, I don't have any curtains. So essentially, I am being skull-fucked. Fantastic news. In the end, we still defeated the sun. I managed to acquire a flag and put it up, but I am still being blinded. But I want to say thank you. This is the first time I've ever made a YouTube video. This will be the first of many, many more to come. As frustrating as it was a tad bit to make this, I will continue to probably focus here on YouTube more than I do on TikTok. So be sure to like, share, subscribe, do what you need to do. I don't exactly know how this entire platform works entirely yet, but I'll learn as I go. So with that being said, normally I probably should have an outro here, but I don't have an outro. So,